Afrikaans language is one that has increasingly grown over the years. On the one side, you've always been faced with the conservatives, or the so-called Vegters, Kamp Vegters for Afrikaans. Then you have black, white, coloured Indians alike who've been speaking the language for hundreds of years before that and now. With so many colours, varieties associated with one language, how can an individual group claim it has their own today? We continue this discussion and we're joined by Dr. Danny Titus from the Afrikaans, as well as Afrikaans rapping sensation Jack Parow, who himself has enjoyed criticism over the years for his use of the language. He joins us in our studio in Sea Point in Cape Town. Good morning, Jack. You can hear us?
Yes, how's it going?
Very good, thank you. Good morning to you, Dr. Titus. I want to start with you here in Johannesburg. Why do we have this fight for the soul of Afrikaans, as it were, here in South Africa? Surely the context should be that a language belongs to everyone who speaks it.
And that's exactly what is happening with Afrikaans. I'm not so sure about the soul of Afrikaans, whose soul, which group's soul, because South Africa has been polarized, as we all know. But Afrikaans, the language, has been spoken, as you just indicated, throughout the centuries by different people. Afrikaans comes from the High Dutch, that people in the Cape, slaves, Khoi, San people could not speak, could not pronounce properly, sailors that came from all sorts of areas, and that's how Afrikaans as a new patois developed in the Cape as a lingua franca. It later became the language of a particular dominant group that claimed that this was their cultural ownership, but it's completely different. And that is the thing, that Afrikaans has so many myths, but the life out there in South Africa is completely different than the myths.
Who speaks Afrikaans?
Who speaks Afrikaans? The large majority of South Africans speak Afrikaans. There are white people speaking Afrikaans. There are, well, let's go to the census figures. The census figures of 2011 indicates that 40% of Afrikaans speakers are white. 50% of Afrikaans speakers are coloured. 9% are African and 1% Indian. So if we look at those kind of classifications, the broad range of South Africans are speaking, and as I say, the great myth is that white people are the majority of Afrikaans speakers. They are not.
Let's go to Cape Town quickly, where Jack Parow is looking behind him. Okay, we're having a little technical glitch. It seems he can't hear us at the moment. But let's continue with you, Dr. Titus, here in studio with us. Now, you as the Afrikaans, the organization that furthers the language and assists people who speak it in a way here in South Africa, what are you guys doing to further this cause, and how are people interacting with the language now?
Yes, people are interacting quite dynamically with the language. Our approach at Afrikaans is one of inclusivity, one of acknowledging the diversity of the language, because there are people who feel, no, there is no such thing as a diversity. There is only one standard way of speaking Afrikaans, way of pronouncing Afrikaans, which is really not true. At our activities at the Afrikaans, we look at the much broader picture, and we really feel enriched in our experiences just to hear children spell, just to hear children spelling Afrikaans. We had one competition the other day, a national spelling competition, where you saw African children, white children, just spelling there, and this was for the first additional language speakers. Yeah. And that is an area that we're not really giving enough attention in South Africa. Just a statistic perhaps that may be of relevance. Last year at the matric exams, 50,000 students who wrote Afrikaans were mother tongue speakers.
That's amazing.
There were 90,000 that were second language Afrikaans speakers, which means there is the traditional, but there's also the additional as well.
And often that's not something that's celebrated. But now we're ready to go to Cape Town. Jack Parow, if I can. You can hear me? You've got the technician out from behind you now?
Yeah.
Jack,
Sorry about that.
No worries, man. Thank you for joining us firstly. But Often you have been painted in a corner as somebody who's a polarizing figure within Afrikaans culture. What do you say to that, and what do you say to people that you're doing the language harm by doing what you're doing?
I think people will always like. I think the problem with Afrikaans is that they are with all Afrikaans people are that they are scared. I think some people are a bit scared of change. I think that especially the conservative side of things, they try and hold on to a part of the language that kind of kills it in a way if they're trying to force the whole old way of speaking Afrikaans. And I think along with that comes a lot of like the culture that has kind of fallen away and kind of changed. So I understand why sometimes people are a bit scared of me and scared of the new wave of Afrikaans, but I mean, I think overall it is unfortunately for them the new way of Afrikaans and the new direction in which Afrikaans is heading. So I'm very proud of it. Actually, I'm very proud that I can like represent Afrikaans and I can go make Afrikaans music all over the world, and I have people from countries like from Russia to now. I was in Holland now for again on tour, and there was like people from Norway and from Sweden who are actually learning Afrikaans just to understand my language, so that or understand my songs and stuff. So it's pretty cool, I think.
So through your music, the gospel and other artists like the Antwoord and so forth, the gospel of Afrikaans is going global. But I want to ask you about a specific single, and I think a lot of people misunderstand it. You know, a couple of years ago, you released Afrikaans' Do It. Before you talk about this, I just want us to look at maybe 45 seconds of Afrikaans' Do It. Just play the clip quick.
I'm not free, Afrikaans is do it, Afrikaans is do it, Afrikaans is do it, Afrikaans is do it, Afrikaans weer groot, Afrikaans weer groot, Afrikaans weer groot, Afrikaans weer groot. Yo, dis al 'n lang pad coming, machine guns humming, Jack Sparrow rock keep the steam train running, top van die turnbakkel rap met 'n dik akkel rym, laat die stoom styg brand soos 'n boombakkel, pak net die groot sakke hoog in die hoë takke prop vol woema. Met die groot akke klappie, bekke, groot oop hier die voortande, groot planne, smaak net poppies, met groot kanne, wanne word, ammo nou het laas fucking wakker, manne skop palms, laat in die shopping rakke, los die kakke, angst om die lekker enes, drop die attitude,
Jack, this song caused quite a bit of a stir amongst, let's call it the conservative side of the language. What's your message to them? This is not a negative song about Afrikaans, is it?
No, it's actually about like I think the old way of looking at Afrikaans and the old like conservative Afrikaans. Because I mean, a lot of people now all of a sudden, since there's been a rejuvenation in Afrikaans, now all of a sudden all these people like that used to say things like Afrikaans is a dying language and Afrikaans is coming to an end, etc., etc. Now all of a sudden they've come back to kind of all of a sudden try and take hold of Afrikaans again. So I think the whole thing with that song is when I wrote it, there was a lot of people, as I said, that said like Afrikaans is dying, Afrikaans is a dying language, and I was like, well, if you guys think that Afrikaans is dying, then I'm going to take it, and it's now my language, then I'll take it and I'll make it big. So that's why it says Afrikaans is do it, maar ons maak Afrikaans weer groot. Like it's dead, but we as me and my fans and the people that listen to me and enjoy my music, we are making it big again.
If I can come back to Dr. Titus here in the studio in Johannesburg, what's your response to the way that Afrikaans is being celebrated now by a lot of artists, rappers and the like, especially the kind of genre that Jack Sparrow is doing?
Well, it's a question of money. There's money behind it, and there's money to be made out of Afrikaans, and that's also a major factor that is taking place. But also people are having that kind of pride, are having that kind of connection now with a different kind of Afrikaans, not a culturally bounded language in a particular grouping, but a language that is free, a language that is part of liberation, and not so much a language of oppression. But yes, it's a mixture of factors, and people want to go to festivals, to Afrikaans festivals, to go and celebrate, to go feel some kind of a togetherness. But yes, I think there is a strong market for it, and that should be celebrated.
Jack, I want to come to you. I want to ask you about, do you see yourself as a figure within Afrikaans that challenges the conservative ideas and the oppressive past of Afrikaans, and see yourself as beating a new trail for the language? And should those conservative groups be challenged?
I definitely think so. I think that they should be challenged. I think that a lot of people, I'm not going to name names. First of all, like I just want to touch on what was just said about. I do feel like a lot of Afrikaans musicians and a lot of Afrikaans people do make Afrikaans music only for the wrong reasons, for things like money or for fame and stuff. And I think they feel that it's an easy market to tread. But me myself, I got into it. I made music in Afrikaans for many years, just for the whole reason of loving Afrikaans. And I think that's what a lot of me and my other Belleville bands, people like Fok of Polisiekar, etc. We kind of wanted to. When we grew up in Belleville, we kind of are in that group of people which was too young to be part of apartheid, but too old not to be. So it's like a difficult age group, I think. And I think the whole problem was when, at that time, people people looked down on Afrikaans, and even Afrikaans people acted like they were not Afrikaans. They were speaking English, and they would say they're not Afrikaans, they're English. So I think that's the whole thing. We just wanted to move that out of that context. We want to move people away from looking at Afrikaans and thinking of that, of like apartheid, the old like regime, that whole world, because we are not part of that at all. I mean, I have no connection to that at all as myself. So I think that's the main thing. I think people who try to drag Afrikaans back into that conservative, like looking at it in that conservative way. Sorry, I fall over my words being Afrikaans. English sometimes goes past me. But yeah, so it's that whole thing. It's where people try and drag it back, and there's like big musicians that, once again, I'm not going to name names, that are kind of killing the language by doing that, by doing, like saying, like using racism as a kind of card in their own weird little game. So I think it's sad, like that those people, they aren't Afrikaans people. They are actually, I don't know, I think they probably hate Afrikaans, and they kind of just use it and try and kill it, actually, in a way, I think.
And your music has quite a wide audience, a wide support base, and you yourself have a lot of roots in the so-called coloured communities in the Cape. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, I grew up rapping in places like Mitchell's Plain and stuff with people from the coloured community. They actually were the first people no one wanted to listen to my music, and then they listened to my, like I made music with people like Isaac Mutant and Garlic Brown and guys from Brasse van die Kaap and that whole thing. So that's where I grew up and kind of like honed my skills in a way. So I have a very deep connection to that, seeing as that was pretty much the only my original base where I could make music and be myself and kind of express myself, where in the rest of Cape Town, no one was really, or in South Africa, no one was listening to my music at all.
Jack, thank you for joining us and for the fantastic work that you do in the communities in the Cape. That's Jack Parow, who is the biggest, in my view, biggest Afrikaans artist now in South Africa. But I want to conclude with you, Doctor. Just finally, your views about the evolution that Jack is talking about, Afrikaans. And then, you know, we've had a spat here at the SABC about how the language is being portrayed and how it's being treated. And we've had schedule changes where the Afrikaans news has moved back and forth. It's now next week, the 3rd of November. It goes back to its traditional slot. If you can maybe start there and tell us your views on that move back and then also the evolution of Afrikaans.
Well, yes, with the move back, we are very fortunate and very pleased with the way that things have turned out, and that the SABC top management also listened. We had an opportunity to present our case to them as well, and a very valuable meeting that we had, very productive meeting, and even the meeting after that. So we are quite grateful for the approach of the SABC. As far as the broad issue of Afrikaans, I don't think we are at an us-them anymore. I don't think we are so much at that level. We are at a complete different level, where this is an inclusive language, where this is a language that unites people, a language that provides the opportunity for people to hold hands as South Africans, and to put the myths behind us. I mean, we had in Johannesburg the Soweto uprisings in '76, but we had the same uprisings in Cape Town, where we had our uprising in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of South African contradictions. But as far as 2014 is concerned, there's a new life. There's a new dynamic. There are young people that are showing us how it is done, and we gladly follow them.
That's fantastic to hear. From the Afrikaanse Taal en Kultuurvereniging, the ATKV here in South Africa, Dr. Danny Titus. Thank you for joining us and giving us your views on the language. And yes, I think we can all agree that Afrikaans is not dead at all. It's probably the strongest language in the country. Thank you for joining us today.